And I would think that if you were to pursue both paths, and I actually think they're reinforcing, that you would be able to build excitement, but that excitement would then demand a pipeline of some sort. And so the idea of engaging community at local levels and being able to convey the ideas to those who would ultimately have to implement on this model seems to be a very important piece to this. And I just wonder what your thinking is about how to continue to educate and build the community piece of this equation.
Sure, I think that there is some very honest and realistic skepticism among providers, and there's a real worry that some of the hype around social impact bonds is going to distract governments and foundations from funding basic social services in the way that they have been in the past. So I think before we can get people excited, I think we also need to be very clear about engaging with some of the worry that people legitimately have about this tool. Part of that worry is about the hype. And I think when we hear some people talk about how social impact bonds can transform the great bulk of government spending, service providers and people in the communities are legitimately worried about what that means about the systems that aren't working. And I think it's important, certainly as the Rockefeller Foundation, we believe that while social impact bonds are incredibly powerful, they are not going to replace government spending, that the vast majority of what governments and private foundations fund should continue to be funded through mechanisms that already exist that have proven successful. And so, first of all, we need to just be very clear about what we're talking about. We're talking about a potentially powerful tool that could transform millions of people's lives. We're not talking about something that's going to upend everything. And I think we just have to be quite clear, and in the UK especially, where this has been coupled to a very visible political agenda at the national government level, and a real disruption to the funding flows of social service provision in that country. Sometimes the hype around social impact bonds, which excites those of us who understand the concept, can also legitimately be very worrying to those who rely on a different funding flow currently. So we need to be clear about what it is we're talking about. It's an exciting innovation. It should really create new opportunities for the effective service providers in certain locations addressing certain problems with certain tools to actually get more funding. It shouldn't be seen as something that's going to take good service providers who are currently creating good work and take away or pull the rug from under them. So I think first of all, we also, we need to be realistic. Certainly the Rockefeller Foundation, through our Impact Investing Initiative, we are absolutely convinced that for-profit investors have a moral legitimacy in engaging on solving social problems. Most people don't believe that. And after the financial crisis, we are absolutely understanding why many people in the social service sector see the idea of financial structuring as something that's quite worrisome. And they challenge the moral legitimacy of those people who say that investors and investment bankers have a right to sit alongside us in the noble work of solving social issues. And so again, I think we just have a communication challenge. We also not just need to communicate more effectively, also need to legitimately be sitting down with people and being much more thoughtful about how we bring people into this process. This is not going to be something that will succeed if it's investors sitting in back rooms with local governments cooking up deals that then get handed down and change how funding flows work for the nonprofits. This has to be something that deeply engages the service providers. At the end of the day, when it is effective, a social impact bond actually has the power to do that as powerfully as anything else because it aligns the interests of those investors concretely with the service providers. There are a few other mechanisms which would ultimately lead to an investor having a deep and abiding not only interest in, but incentive to ensure that a nonprofit does its work very, very well. And so while that's intimidating and foreboding to some, we actually think if done well, that could be incredibly exciting and really create that transformative innovation I talked about at the beginning, which is going to come from people unused to working together, collaborating, and therefore bringing new ideas and new skills to bear on existing problems.